My heartfelt thanks to all of you for your presence here this evening, for your care for Christ's church, and for your desire to discern together how we faithfully embody his peace in the world today. In a recent address to a course of chaplains charged with the pastoral care for people who are or have been in militaries around the world, Pope Francis said this: "War, in fact, disfigures the bonds between brothers, between nations. It also disfigures those who are witnesses of such atrocities. Many military men return after war operations or missions for the reestablishment of peace with true and proper interior wounds. War can leave an indelible mark on them. In reality, war always leaves an indelible mark. I've heard at this time the stories of so many bishops who receive in their diocese soldiers who left to engage in war, how they return with these wounds." The Holy Father went on to say, "However, as Christians, we are profoundly convinced that the ultimate objective, that most worthy of the person and of the human community, is the abolition of war. Therefore, we must always be committed to build bridges that unite and not walls that separate. We must always help to seek the hope for mediation and reconciliation. We must never yield to the temptation to consider the other only as an enemy to destroy, but rather as a person gifted with intrinsic dignity, created by God in his image." These passages describe well the work of the Catholic Peace Fellowship. At CPF, we are guided by a personalist philosophy, and we work for peace before, during, and after war through education, counseling, advocacy, and accompaniment. We offer practical and pastoral support to military and veterans who are struggling with the contradiction between their personal participation in war and their consciences. Our day-to-day efforts primarily involve accompanying military conscientious objectors to war through their applying for conscientious objector status, and often with their vocational discernment that follows such a decision. Through CPF's David's Heart Ministry, our staff also listens to and walks with military veterans and their families and loved ones. In recent years, a growing number of military veterans wrestling with moral confusion, guilt, or shame, what some people now label moral injury, and what St. Augustine called heartfelt grief or anguish of the soul following combat, have reached out to us with questions. They come to us seeking peace. We ask your prayers for these conscientious objectors and military veterans whom we are currently accompanying, and the thousands of people CPF staff have accompanied over the years, since two New York Catholic workers, Jim Forrest and Tom Cornell, attended a peacemakers retreat orchestrated by Father Thomas Merton at Gethsemane Abbey in 1964. The gathering which sparked the origin of the Catholic Peace Fellowship and gave direction to its apostolic work. In addition to our direct work with members of the military and former members of the military, our Seeking Peace One Person at a Time, and educational and catechetical work on war, peace, and conscience brings us into collaboration with pastors and ministers on parish staffs, parents, teachers, administrators at the high school and college levels, workers at diocesan offices in various locations, hospice chaplains and centers, Catholic worker communities, and religious orders. While much of our work these days takes place in the Midwest, we do work with people and institutions in many parts of the country. CPF has some information sheets over by the name tag table, and I will be available after this evening's program to speak briefly with anyone who is moved to do so. Pope Francis has invited us to cultivate a culture of encounter in the church. Tonight we have invited several people whom I've met over the years through the Catholic Peace Fellowship to share their stories with you. And we invite you to listen and ponder what their stories have to say to us about our call and responsibility as followers of our Lord Jesus Christ, who is our peace. We hope this evening sows the seeds for further prayer, respectful discussion, and discernment about the forming of Christian consciences, the shaping of people's hearts, and their knowing with the church, in relation to the scourge of war, violence, killing, and bloodshed, and to the gospel call to be peacemakers. I wish to share my heartfelt gratitude to those who travel great distances to be on our panel tonight. We will hear first from Raquel Falk, then from Daniel Baker, and then from Christy Castillo. After they speak, we will hear from Bishop Taylor, and Tomas will moderate questions for our panelists. Thank you again, and I now invite Raquel to begin our discussion.